All right, Madison, we have one of our missionaries here. She is serving in Nigeria. Her name is Sarah Aderemi. She is serving with Association of Christian Schools, ACSI in Nigeria, and we want to hear from her to see how the pandemic, the stay-at-home order is affecting her and her family, and how it's affecting the ministry that she's involved in. So Sarah, thank you for being with us and sharing with us.
Hey Madison, and hey Madison Missions team. It's really, really such a blessing to see your faces, even though it's virtual. And I hope very soon we'll be able to see you in person. So I'm here in Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm working with the Association of Christian Schools. And we have been under lockdown for about 5 weeks. And but this Monday, the government just lifted the lockdown order just because of the impact that lockdown has had on the economy and on the most vulnerable people here. And so they lifted the lockdown, and we're kind of waiting for the numbers to increase and to see how things go in the next few weeks, and how people respond to the lifting of the lockdown. So ACSI Nigeria has, we've been working from home since the lockdown started. All the staff have been at home, and but I'm kind of in a different situation because I just had a baby about 2 months ago. So just before we had our first few cases in Nigeria, I gave birth, and so I've been on maternity leave for the past few months. And so that's been a huge blessing, I think, for me personally, because it's been a very welcome distraction during all this lockdown and this pandemic. So I'm really, really grateful just to have a new life, and just to be able to celebrate that new life during this time. So in terms of the ACSI office, I think most of our schools have also been closed since the beginning of the lockdown. So all the school children have been told to go home. And the office has been trying to think about how we can support these schools and how we can encourage them during this time. And it's been a really difficult time just for the ACSI office in general. We've had, the office really relies on programs that we run, trainings, conferences, and things like that to pay staff and to support the office. And so since last year, we've had just several instances where programs have had to been canceled, and so income has not been coming in. And so due to the pandemic now, since we're not able to hold any programs, we've also not been able to make any money as an office. And so they were able to pay salaries for the staff this past month, but it's not looking very promising for the upcoming months for the staff, unless we're able to find a way to monetize some online trainings and things like that. And so it's been really hard just seeing how this is impacting just the ACSI staff. Now that they've lifted the order, the national administrator has required that the staff start coming into the office. And I spoke with him the other day, and I was really just concerned because a lot of the staff are taking public transport into the office, and you don't know who they're going to come in contact with when they're taking public transport and just leaving their homes. And you look at our neighbor Ghana, their numbers doubled over that week once they lifted their lockdown. And so it's really, I think there's a sense of fear in terms of how this is going to affect the ACSI staff. So it's also been a challenge for a lot of our schools. A lot of our schools are, serving low-income areas, middle-income, and higher income areas. So we have quite a big range for our schools. And so for about 5 weeks, they've been trying to figure out, how do we do online learning? How do we do this term or this semester online? And I think for a lot of schools, it's been a struggle. A lot of schools haven't had systems in place in the past. And so trying to all of a sudden figure out how can they meet the needs of these children at home, how do they work with the parents, has been really difficult. So we've been trying to provide as many resources and things like that as we can to the schools. I spoke with one school owner in Abuja the other day, and she said that for them, thankfully, their school was using Google Classroom and one other platform for their early childhood education program. And so for them, the transition was a bit easier because their teachers and their parents and their students were already familiar with those learning tools. But for a lot of schools, they didn't have platforms like that. And so yeah, a lot of schools are trying to figure out how do we, whether it's on WhatsApp, whether it's bringing worksheets to, the children's home physically, trying to figure out how they can meet the needs of the children and the parents while they're at home. And so I think it's definitely been a challenge. And one of the ways we're trying to respond as an office is we're trying to start like a webinar series through Zoom. And this is something new to us. We've not done it before. So it's kind of exciting and kind of scary at the same time. So we have about 8 facilitators lined up to take different topics to help schools be able to work through some of these resources that we've been providing, but also to help them think about like whole school improvement. How can they encourage whole school improvement during this period? So we're kicking that off next week, Tuesday, and we'll do it weekly on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. And the first topic is the new normal. So we have somebody facilitating that session. And so we're just really praying that we can meet the needs of our schools just through this, and hopefully out of this will come good conversations and good discussion. Yeah, it's a trying time for a lot of schools and for a lot of families as they're trying to teach their children at home during this period. And so, a lot of schools are wondering whether we can make it financially. We can't pay teachers because parents aren't paying school fees because maybe they don't see the value in the online education that the schools are providing. So it's an ongoing conversation, and we're still kind of at the beginning of trying to figure out how to respond to this, I think. So yeah, prayers for wisdom and how to respond to this would be great. So for us personally, yeah, I haven't been doing much work over the past few months because I've been on maternity leave, but I've started working this week. And so I think for me personally, yeah, like I said earlier, it's been a huge blessing to have the birth of our child. And we've also had my husband's mother around for the last 2 months. Well, me, I'm gonna cry too, but she's leaving us tomorrow. So that's been a huge blessing to us, to have had her around, a sense of peace during this whole pandemic. She's just been so helpful with cooking and taking care of the baby and watching him when we're not sleeping. And it's been a huge blessing to us. So it's really hard, I think, for us to see her go. And then also to start working and trying to figure out how do we care for a baby, and both of us are working at the same time, and that's been, yeah, that's hard. So I think just, yeah, for us that would be a big change once she leaves. So just trying to balance all of those things. So I think, just like Diane said, I think as I've been kind of figuring out, the pandemic that just started here, we're a little bit behind you guys, but just figuring out how am I responding to all of this. I think for me, it's been hard because you look at the statistics, you look at the numbers, you look at, like, there's no way that the healthcare system can really care for all the people, especially now that we've lifted the lockdown. I mean, last I checked, we had about 700 beds in Lagos, and this is one of the most progressive parts of Nigeria. You look at the numbers and you look at the statistics and you look at the number of cases that are coming every day. They're sending reports. I think it's overwhelming, and I'm the kind of person that likes to be in control and likes to be have a plan and have something lined up. And so there's nothing you can control. There's nothing that you can control in this. And so I think that's been really hard for me. And so I think for me, just recognizing that ultimately, like, my life is not in my own hands, it's in God's hands, and it's in His control, and everything is in His timing. And so I think just constantly reminding myself of that this is not, this world, this earth is not the end. It's just the beginning. And so I think for me, that's been something to hold on to, just as, you look at how things are going. And, the U.S. embassy keeps sending me, like, emails every day. I think I need to block them, but they've been sending me emails every day, like evacuation flights and all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't leave. Like, I have a baby that doesn't have a passport, and I have a husband that doesn't have a visa. you know, I'm here and I've chosen to be here. And so, yeah, it's hard. But I'm grateful for just being able to hold on to that truth that like my life is in God's hands, and he has a plan and purpose for this period. And he knows far more than what we know. And so I'm grateful for that. Grateful for just, we honestly have, in our like community, we have in our like estate where we live, there are a few other church families. And so we've been, we're all kind of working from home. So we've been seeing each other on the weekends and playing games, and that's been a huge blessing just for an extrovert like me, just to have people to interact with outside of the home. So that's been so nice. And with my family, we've been doing like virtual Scrabble games once a week. And so, yeah, we're finding ways to kind of cope with just being indoors and staying inside. And so that's been a huge blessing to find community, even despite the fact that we're staying at home. So yeah, that's kind of it for us. Yeah.
Sarah, so your mother-in-law is leaving tomorrow, but your mom was also planning to come to visit to see her new grandchild, correct?
Yeah. You're gonna make me cry again.
I'm so sorry.
My parents were gonna come, and they made the decision to not come right before Nigeria closed their borders. And so it was a blessing that they made that decision when they did, because if they had come, they wouldn't have been able to leave. So they made the decision. I really had a hand in that. But I didn't know how things were going to go with having Dami's mom around. I didn't know. And so, but it really went, you know, maybe at the beginning there was a bit of tension because we just do things differently, but really it's been just so good to have her around. Just, yeah, even though my mom wasn't able to come, she was able to kind of take her place.
Yeah, God provided in that way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing.